It's still morning, so we're going to say good morning. We have a couple more panelists until it's lunch. But let's keep our energy high because this is very important. I was just talking to this gentleman, and he is the Senior Vice President and Chief Marketing Officer. Now, I want to talk a little bit about him. They've actually given me a little time. They haven't started the clock, Don. I'm not taking up any of your time. Because this is about expanding 5G just beyond the cell phone experience. They explained to me in the hallway, I learned, chips going into cars, like 5G all over the place. And this guy is, as Buzz Lightyear says, infinity and beyond, like 5G everywhere. And this kind of job requires a lot of vision, and I think to some degree, you and I are kindred, sense of humor. You have to think outside of the box, you have to have fun with it. And for those of you who don't know this, I'm gonna pronounce it properly, Adidas, to the rest of us, he has incredibly cool shoes on. So if you haven't actually had a conversation with Don, maybe I can lure you to have a quick one-on-one and talk about everything coming in the future during lunch while gazing at his incredibly interesting shoes. They're not random, they speak volumes, like so many other things about Don. He's got that relaxed, cool, skinny jean kind of super cash, $200 haircut look. So he's the man for the job, and he'll bring up the rest of the panel. But before you meet the rest of the panel, meet the moderator, the man, the shoes, Don McGuire.
Well, that was quite funny. $40 haircut, not $200 haircut. All right, well, welcome back. Thanks for coming. Really good to see all of you here. And before we get started, I do want to do a little PSA for the raffle, right? Hopefully you're not just here for that, but if you are, so what you need to do is to enter is you need to be here, number one, so check, you made that. Snap a picture of the conversation between the four of us, post it on your Twitter handle or your account between 10:45 and 11:45 a.m. using hashtag 5G sweepstakes. Remember hashtag 5G sweepstakes. Then tag and follow at Qualcomm, which is our corporate master brand handle, for your chance to win, and you'll be DM'd directly if you won. And in case you didn't know what you could win, is you could win some awesome A3 AR headsets from Lenovo. That's 2 people, the Think Reality headsets. And you could also win a year subscription to Adobe Lightroom, compliments of one of our guests from Adobe. So make sure you enter to win. And it is kind of a marketing talk, so we had to do a promotion, right? So we wouldn't be marketing if we didn't do that. A funny story too, yesterday someone came up to me and said, how do you know that this is a Don McGuire event? And I said, I don't know how you know. They said, because there's a Ferris wheel. And I said, actually, that's all Amber. That's all our events team. But Ferris wheel was cut. I didn't go on the Ferris wheel. I would have gotten vertigo. But I thought that was a nice ad. Hope you guys had a good time last night. Yes? Okay, good. All right. Well, we're going to get started here. I'm going to introduce these guests who are just amazing at their jobs, and they're leaders in their own right at their respective organizations. And they're hopefully going to give some great dialogue today, and you're going to be informed and maybe a little inspired about 5G and how it's proliferating across industries, device categories, and how, as a part of that proliferation, it's not just about the technology itself, but it's also about how do we talk about it to our audiences, whether it's a business audience, an enterprise audience, or whether it's a consumer audience. So we're going to engage a little bit in that, and we're going to talk about it from an operator perspective, a device category perspective, and from a software and services perspective. So we're going to get some really nice mix of perspectives. So with that, I'm going to introduce my first guest. My first guest is from T-Mobile, and he is the Vice President of Device Technology, and his name is Ryan Sullivan. So please welcome Ryan. Welcome, Ryan. All right. Okay, and my second guest is from Adobe. Really happy to have Adobe here. I think it's the first time Adobe's been at our 5G Summit, so really happy to have Adobe here. And Lauren Bean is joining us here from Adobe. She's the Senior Cloud Solutions Consultant for High Tech. So welcome, Lauren. So good to have you. All right, and you may have, if you were here for the Metaverse conversation, you may have seen this next guest. He is amazing in that he's pulling double duty today for us, and he was so gracious to fill in and join this panel. But you just saw him on stage with Ugo, and that is Vishal Shah from Lenovo. Welcome, Vishal.
By the way.
Was it a $40 Walmart haircut or was it $20?
You don't want
Was it a robot that did the haircut? That's the question.
Exactly.
A 5G robot cut Vishal's hair. Okay, so we're just going to get right into this. The first question I'm going to pose to Ryan, and then, of course, as panels operate, please feel free to chime in, with additional perspective. But it's really about how are we looking at, as we expand 5G beyond smartphones, and we know there's been a lot of marketing around that, especially from an operator perspective. But T-Mobile is doing some really interesting things beyond the smartphone with 5G. And so if you can give us your perspective, Ryan, we'll start with you and then we'll move on. How is T-Mobile looking at marketing 5G beyond the smartphone category to its customer base?
Yeah, so it's a unique challenge as an operator to associate our network beyond just the smartphone, right? I think 4G, which came along 11, 12 years ago, it was about creating mobility and about adding the depth of experience on the smartphones that were out there that you just couldn't have before with social marketing, with rideshare, with video content coming in and out. But it was still all very mobile focused and smartphones focused. So over the course of the past 2 decades, coming into shop in a T-Mobile or an operator channel, it's synonymous with your smartphone. And you don't necessarily naturally associate it with other types of products. But at T-Mobile, one of our corporate priorities is to grow those connections beyond the smartphone because quite frankly, with the 5G network that we put in place and over 300 million people covered, the amount of capacity and that we bring to the network, we have to look beyond the smartphone because quite frankly, smartphones have become somewhat saturated markets. So the time is right with 5G and the way we've been looking at it is not only stabilizing the ever-growing data needs for our smartphone customers, but how do we create additional connection opportunities to connect our customers' lives and to connect our enterprise customers at the factory, at the job site, within cities, et cetera. So the challenge that comes with that is it's not the recognition is not necessarily there as T-Mobile as a connectivity source for these non-traditional consumer devices, wireless consumer devices. So the way we're approaching it is we take verticals on, right? There's new emerging spaces that are coming in, XR, that have been discussed as part of this show. So really going to the partnerships, talking to the CIOs, talking to the chief marketing officers of these companies that are already focused in this area and building out for the metaverse to say, how can we not only connect you and connect your customers seamlessly, not only in a mobile, but in a stationary environment in a real way, but how do we differentiate your products by bringing the value of the wireless operator to bear, right? Beyond Wi-Fi or any other connectivity source. So whether it's a connected PC or a connected VR headset, or whether it's a home internet box like we announced over a year ago with our home internet service, how do we use that capacity and then really talk about the value that comes from cellular connectivity on 5G versus open Wi-Fi or secure Wi-Fi. And so it really comes to building the value proposition for location, for security, and obviously cybersecurity is a very real thing. Security is top of mind for consumers and enterprises moving forward. So leaning in on that and talking about how we can actually connect customers in a very secure way, more secure than Wi-Fi. I think that's one big selling point. I think the intelligence that we bring with the cellular connectivity on understanding that customer experience and even being able to throttle quality of service or dedicating a QoS pipe for certain use cases with network slicing, with QoS, with private networks, et cetera. Those are all the ways that we're trying to figure out how to do that, really segment by segment to say what's important to the consumer in either the gaming market or in the home internet market or whatever, and how do we capsulize those network efficiencies that get brought to bear and really sell those as part of the value proposition, not necessarily from T-Mobile directly, but for the sellers of these devices that are out there today, the sellers of record, either whether it be big box retail or whether it be online with Amazon or whatever it may be. Let consumers buy these devices where they're buying them today and not try and change that dynamic. But then along the way, once we get them set up, let's let them understand the value proposition that cellular connectivity, 5G connectivity bring for them beyond what they've traditionally used to connect those devices.
That's great. And as operators like you, like T-Mobile, is building the blanket of coverage and network services, Vishal, from a Lenovo perspective, you've got to be looking at, okay, we've got all these different device categories.
Yep.
You've already pushed aggressively, and probably a first mover, I would say, in taking 5G out of the smartphone, with your Motorola subsidiary, and really moving it into PC, XR spaces. So from your perspective, the two work in tandem, right? You got to have the network services there. But from a device ecosystem perspective,
that's great synergy. And Don, as a marketing guru yourself, I strongly believe the best marketing campaigns and best marketing strategies come out of listening to your customers and having the right kind of marketing research. So being number one PC player, I think we have early indications where, I think work from home is dead. It's now work from everywhere, right? Airbnb CEO just came out and said his entire staff can now work from any part of the world and they will be recruiting worldwide. And guess what? They had 80,000 applicants the next day, or people looking at their job board, right? So it's become a big strategic advantage, just like the new stock options going forward, right? So, and most of the research we've done is like only 20% of the people ever want to come back to the office. The other 30% want to stay at home, and the other want some sort of a hybrid environment, right? So, like you said, how do we make that happen? So it's all, again, coming back to how do we revolutionize the PC, which is still the ultimate enterprise device, and working with what you guys are doing with the Eagle X13 around better AI, better sound reduction. If you're sitting in a coffee shop, how can you make sure that your boss doesn't know that you're on the beach or something, right? So those are the kind of technologies that we're bringing in. On the PC side of things. And then the Metaverse is kind of creating a complete new set of opportunities for us, right? It's going to be a 10 trillion plus market, according to most analysts. And the experiences that you're going to have are largely around 3D and AR, VR. And that has to be powered by some sort of a 5G network. I think that's been the bottleneck into the transition of the Web 3.0 is the fact that the 5G networks just weren't there. And now thanks to what the folks like T-Mobile are doing and what even Qualcomm is doing with millimeter wave, it's actually becoming real. Where we can now even market marketing in the Metaverse, right? So imagine you go into a particular store and you just scan a particular device. There's something called Web AR now, where all the rendering happens in the web, and you get 3D content on your device or your glasses. You just can't do that on Wi-Fi because you don't have the Wi-Fi password for the departmental store, or if you're outside somewhere, right? So once 5G is ubiquitous, as it's going to be here and already is, great opportunities come out in the Metaverse marketing as well with technologies like Web AR, which is very exciting for us on the marketing side as well.
That's great. So let's get Lauren in on this conversation. Because Adobe has a different perspective, right? You make these powerful tools. Historically, people have used them to create amazing content that will be used over networks in the Metaverse and beyond. But these powerful tools need powerful bandwidth, powerful performance in order for people to be creators. So what's your perspective from the ecosystem of creation and providing tools? How is kind of 5G as it proliferates beyond the phone really important from an Adobe perspective?
When we think about the user experiences and the customer journeys, at the core of Adobe, our mission is to deliver. Sorry, I'm trying to remember everything. Our mission is to deliver amazing experiences, right? And it's not just from a marketing standpoint, it's from a design standpoint, it all comes together. And when we think about the Adobe Experience Cloud, this is all our different products. We've got data and insights, testing and optimization, personalization, your multi-channel marketing tools such as Campaign or Marketo. And then, we also have your marketing system of record, which is the Workfront piece. So when we think about all of these, they're also built on the Adobe Experience Platform. Everything that the Adobe Experience Platform powers is going to be these tools. So they're all integrated across the system. So it's not just, okay, I'm sending an email or I'm sending a push message. It's taking you all the way through the journey from the start to the finish, and also keeping your customers engaged beyond that, they've purchased something, and making them a brand advocate.
Yeah, that's great. And so you need, you need as your tools become more ubiquitous, right? People are not just using them on workstations anymore. That 5G bandwidth, capacity, low latency, and speed is going to be really important to unlock Adobe in every use case in every environment on the go.
Absolutely. So, when we think about the Adobe Experience Cloud and not the Experience Cloud, but on the digital side, with XD, those are cloud solutions. And when you're on the go, you need to have high power to be able to get these big files, because XD or InDesign or any of these types of files that you're creating are going to be quite large. You need to be able to change them in real time and also collaborate. So within the Workfront, you've got multiple designers and multiple content writers, everybody collaborating in on one document. 5G is really going to support that so that we can all collaborate together in real time and make sure that updates are seen across the board.
Yeah, and I think you might have heard Cristiano mention that in 2020, right before lockdown, we did a What's Next in 5G event in our San Diego campus, and one of the use cases we showed a little ahead of the curve outside the phone was Adobe Lightroom being used on a Lenovo 5G PC over a 5G network that was real time, and the experience was an on-the-go experience of something that historically you would think you need to sit at a desk and have a powerful kind of workstation environment. So, it's coming, and the more ubiquitous 5G gets, I think the more potential it has to unlock these. So great. So thanks for contributing to that. I'm going to move to another question now, which is about product experiences, building off what Lauren just said, and I'll throw this to Vishal as the resident product person on the panel. How are the 5G product experiences that you're building going to be important to industries or consumers outside of the smartphone? So obviously you just talked on the Metaverse panel, that's got its own thing. But with the X13, right, which we just launched in partnership with you, that's really the first enterprise grade 5G PC. Yeah. Right, that's available to
yeah,
users.
Absolutely. And I think what it really enables, right, the 5G revolution, it really democratizes, the IT infrastructure like we've never seen it before, right? It's ubiquitous devices, ubiquitous security. You can get your security patches to you all the time. Even if you're sitting at the airport, it's always connected, and not you're fumbling around with unsecure Wi-Fi locations, right? So it's definitely a new paradigm in the way IT will manage devices, and what actually consumers and enterprise customers will demand from their IT organization, saying, I don't want to be working on these older technologies anymore. So that's number one. And then number two, every company is going to be impacted, and 5G is going to enable this digital transformation for them. Well, if you look at all the icons behind us, right, whether it's IoT, whether it's industrial routers, what the remote workers are going to be able to do going forward. Right now, there's a huge worker shortage. Like just in the US, there are 6 million workers where we have shortage where they need to use their hands in a hands-free environment. How do you train them? How do you onboard them? So there could be a lot of good 5G tools that you can use around AR, VR that helps them get on board a lot faster. So that's number one. Remote assistance, right? So now I can send someone with half the skill or half the level of trading, and he or she can have a remote expert on a 5G connection, and we walk through in an XR or AR space on how to fix something. So those are the kind of use cases that we are really seeing being opened up with a combination of these new devices enabled by 5G. And I think the content part is going to be huge. If you look at some of the reports that have been coming out, the compute power that the Metaverse is going to require is about 10,000 times more than the compute power that the entire mobile revolution required, right? So this is where we will have to step up our game in terms of the compute power along with Qualcomm, and so that some of these Adobe-like kind of experiences can be developed, because now, guess what? They're all moving from 2D to 3D into the cloud and rendered from the cloud.
Right.
So we got to solve for that.
So Ryan, I want to talk to you about home internet.
Yeah.
Because that is a product experience that you guys have taken outside the phone. And it's really, as you have proliferated 5G coverage across the country the most, right? How is home internet, it has the potential to really kind of bridge the digital divide, right? Where you've got spotty fiber, right? It's focused on dense urban areas where the ROI is there for the telco, whoever, or the cable operator, whoever it might be. But T-Mobile really opens that up and makes high-speed bandwidth available, or broadband-like bandwidth available to a broader swath of people. How do you look at the product experience of 5G home internet as a part of this conversation?
Yeah, I think, so our venture into home internet, a little over a year ago, that was our first big go beyond the smartphone, I would say, which is a top corporate priority at T-Mobile, is growing beyond the smartphone. Home internet was really that kind of low-hanging fruit at T-Mobile. We look at the spectrum position that we had after Sprint and T-Mobile came together, and not only having low-band 5G, but having this deep, rich portfolio of mid-band spectrum with 2.5 gigahertz that we brought in. 160 to 190 megahertz in most major areas, and then nationwide propagation as well. So it was a little bit of a no-brainer for us, right? I mean, we look at the promoter scores in the home internet space. They're not great. Customers are dissatisfied. In many cases, they're given very few choices in terms of what they have for their service, especially outside the dense, urban areas.
And it's expensive.
And it's expensive, right? And so it's, in many cases, you're finding that you're in a one or two pony market, right? Where you have very few options. We looked at it a little bit differently. We said, hey, we've got this excess capacity. We're deploying this dense 5G network nationwide. And yes, we need some of it to serve our mobile customers, but we've got excess capacity in many of our markets. So for those markets, many of them are more rural areas where customers can't get fiber internet. They can't get satellite internet in some cases, and in most cases, they're stuck with dial-up, This is a ripe opportunity for us to reach out to those customers, to let them know that there's another choice, to use our back-end analytics to determine where we have that excess capacity to give. Let's go serve that community with fixed wireless access. And I got to tell you, Don, we would have never imagined in our wildest dreams how much that message would resonate with the customer base, right? This is something where we're giving customers choice. In most cases, 95% of the time, if we qualify a household, we're giving them something that's far superior on both downlink and uplink to what they can get with their existing service options. So it was a no-brainer for us, right? I mean, we put a few boxes out there to test the market. The demand was there. Since then, the demand has been outpacing what we're able to actually get to, and as we're expanding these markets. But we at T-Mobile, we expect to go nationwide with this very soon. We're adding new markets every day. We're rolling additional products into the pipeline. We just launched last week and announced Internet Freedom, which is a guaranteed rate. No exploding promotions. $50 a month for an individual household. Similar rates for enterprise. If you're already a T-Mobile Magenta Max customer, you can get it for $30 a month. And we took the pain points from that industry and said, customers are tired of exploding promotions. Customers are tired of the lack of choice. Customers are tired with having to roll a truck out every time they have an issue. And we said, hey, we're going to fix each one of these things in the service that we offer. We don't want to offer it in a market if we can't check each one of these boxes and kind of relieve those pain points for the customer. And we've been able to do it, and the customer reception has been fantastic. And we expect to go really, really, really big because there are a lot of happy customers out there that use a lot of data on our network. And with our spectrum position and with our 5G build that we've got planned, we expect to be able to serve each and every one of those customers until we effectively get nationwide with that service opportunity.
Yeah, that's great. Vishal mentioned digital transformation, and one of the things that 5G is going to enable, right, is for both individuals and homes and households to digitally transform themselves, especially as we get into remote work and hybrid work, and schooling has changed and education has changed. So it starts even there, but it also goes up to the enterprise. And one thing that I think Adobe knows really well is digital transformation. And I'm going to bring it a little close to home because right now Adobe is in the middle of helping us as Qualcomm, and specifically my organization from a MarTech staff perspective, digitally transform ourselves. And so bringing those two things together, I wanted to get Lauren's perspective on digital transformation and what Adobe is seeing. I think you got two people on stage that you're working with
Yes.
on that effort, but give your perspective on that.
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, Lenovo and T-Mobile are our customers at Adobe, and the digital transformation, we did this thing called the DDOM operating model. And we looked at our business holistically and really developed and transformed the way that we thought about going to market and how we looked at our business digitally. So some of the things that we look at is, how our campaigns are doing and how we're thinking about our customers, but it's also really getting into the data. So when you can think about a CDP, in Adobe's case, we have the real-time CDP, and it's not just a business to consumer, it's also business to person, business to business. There's a lot of different flavors of it and how it works. But these things really help us develop and push how we think of our business by leveraging Sensei, which is AI technologies, to really help us figure out what's next and what we need to do.
Yeah, that's great. And from a marketing perspective, I guess I'll start getting there. Storytelling is really important. And as we look at all the different layers of how we're taking 5G as an ecosystem and as an industry and spreading it out for all of its goodness as we get into the release 16, release 17, release 18 parts of this, how can we as both individual companies in our own spaces respectively, but as collective partners and an ecosystem, tell inclusive stories? I mean, I think, Ryan's, between all four of us, right, we could easily tell a powerful digital divide story, right? When it comes to how is 5G helping bridge digital divide? It's through products, it's through services, it's through tools, right? It's the enabling technology itself. So how do we, and anybody chime in here, but I'm gonna open this up as the last question, how do we tell more inclusive storytelling? And when at the same time we all have our business objectives, we're all telling our individual brand stories, but how do we get together and tell a bigger story to help push this kind of more to the forefront?
Yeah, I think it, for the individual consumer, I think that 5G has to be about connecting their lives, their worlds around them, and no more separation or silos between who they have to deal with to connect their home versus who they have to deal with to connect on the go versus who they have to deal with to connect their businesses. It's all together, right? I mean, these 5G networks that are getting built out, they're built with an exploding amount of data usage in mind, right? And the capacity is there, the spectrum is there, the services coming with release 15, 16, 17 are there to be able to be more intelligent with the connection, right? To be able to offer more than just access, more than just a pipe, but to offer services around it. So for the consumer, it's about connecting their world, right? Their home, their car, their smartphones, their gadgets, their consumer electronics, their gaming consoles, their work and training and life around their professional life. Bring it all together, connect it all, make it simple, take the guesswork out of it, take the hassle out of it of having to deal with multiple different providers, and just bring it all together. And all the while, when you're bringing it all together, there's a level of intelligence in bridging those connections to each other that enable us in a very augmented way to understand these people, understand what they do, understand what's important to them, and serve them data when they need it, wherever they are, right? On the enterprise side, it's similar, right? It's about connecting your factory to the city that you're in, to your fleet that's out in the marketplace, right? Bringing all of that together and doing so in a way that it puts the control back into the hands of the enterprise itself, the business themselves, to say, hey, you don't have to rely on Wi-Fi and sign up for VPN and have to worry about the security of what you've got. Like, your connection is secure, and by the way, we can cut off a slice of a network, we can give it to you, we can give you a private network within your slice, we can give you a dedicated pipe for quality of service where we can actually control the latency that we give you, the throughput, where you're at, whether it be out in the fleet or out in the field, or whether it be in your factory, in your home office. It puts the control back into the hands of the enterprise, which quite frankly is something that they've wanted for years, and there are only so far as you can go in building DAS systems and with Wi-Fi connectivity, right? 5G unlocks the possibility for you to take control of that and really create the most secure connectivity solution for your employees, your customers, and the likes.
Great.
And
So just lightning round, a minute and a half for
Yeah.
Vishal and a minute and a half for Lauren.
Yeah, and
Go.
just to add to that, right, in terms of storytelling, I think we talk a lot about the digital divide, but we don't talk about digital equality. I think what 5G enables is a true digital equality. You can say, okay, there are 1 billion users in China and 1 billion users in India, but they still have 3G devices that don't really have the power that we have. But now, with 5G, along with the Metaverse coming in and the 3D environment, the same kid in India or China or Africa can experience a tour of the Giza pyramids, in a 3D environment that someone sitting in the US can, right? So to me, that's very exciting in terms of how we tell the stories about this digital divide. The same applies for healthcare and education and enterprise as well. So to me, that's really exciting about the equality that this will create along with the metaverse. And in some ways, it could be digital equality also equates to economic equality in my view.
Yeah, that's great. Lauren?
So
Last word.
Last word, okay. When I think about myself, I'm a storyteller,
And you're also a former developer.
Yes, I'm a former developer. I'm also a designer. I've worn many hats over the years. But when I think about telling that inclusive story, is I dive deep on who the customer is and what am I trying to solve for them. I'm not putting my hat on in terms of saying this is my journey and what I'm going to experience. In the case of the 5G networks, I think about my family. I've got my in-laws live 4 hours outside of Denver. They are currently dealing with satellite internet and the issues of it. These types of things help others, right? We're thinking about, my in-laws not being able to connect with us all the time. The most amazing, most powerful thing that they've had recently is my father-in-law has cancer, but he's able to do FaceTime with my kids. And we talk to him once a week. And this type of storytelling and thinking more, not just on we're doing every single step along the path, it's really getting into the meat of what we're trying to understand about our customers and making people human.
Yeah, I heard a humanizing theme actually through all of your responses. That's great. Well, time flies when you're having fun. So we are out of time, but I want to thank again my guests. Hopefully you got some good information and some good learning out of this session. I know it's a quick 30 minutes. We'll be around for the few minutes afterwards if you want to come up and say hi. Thank you again for joining us here. Remember to follow those instructions if you want a chance to win some fabulous prizes. Enjoy the rest of the 5G Summit. Glad to see you all here. Thanks very much.